to 2 Samuel chapter 6. 2 Samuel chapter 6. All right, here we go. Again, David gathered all the choice men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the Ark of God, whose name is called by the name, the Lord of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. So they set the Ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, accompanying the Ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played music before the Lord on all kinds of instruments, of fir wood, on harps, on string instruments, on tambourines, on sistrums, and on cymbals. And when they came to Nason's threshing floor, Uzzah put out his hand to the Ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error, and he died there by the Ark of God. And David became angry because of the Lord's outbreak against Uzzah, and he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day. David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the Ark of God come to me?" So David would not move the Ark of the Lord with him into the city of David, but David took it aside into the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. The Ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Now it was told King David, saying, "The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him because of the Ark of God." Can you imagine if the Ark of God was in your house for 3 months? Can you imagine that? What kind of a person was Obed-Edom that when all this happened, he's the first one they thought of? We need to get Obed-Edom. Think about that. Someone just literally struck dead for how they handled the ark, and now they want to get this Obed. Hey, let's bring it to your house. Let's bring it to your house. Was he excited? Or was he saying, "Oh, okay, king, okay, but..." Can you imagine? What kind of person was Obed-Edom? And can you imagine the ark going to his house 3 months? And even word got back to the king of all the blessings that came upon his house in the 3 months. That word was getting out. Wow. How would you live if the ark was in your house? Think about that. If the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, for whatever reason, however that it happened, it was temporarily placed in your house, how would you carry yourself throughout the day? Would you change anything? Are there some things that you would do differently? How would you live if the Ark was in your house? And can you imagine the experiences that Obed-Edom and his family had? I'm telling you, I bet you people were falling out in the glory all the time. I mean, think of the visions and all the stuff that may have been happening. I mean, can you imagine? There might have even been like a glory cloud in that place or something. I'm telling you, could you imagine going to bed at night
And every dream you have is a vision of heaven. I mean, we're talking, what would it have been like? I'm wondering, what would it have been like? I can imagine you walking through the house and just hearing voices. Who's that talking? And it's just angels praising God. Holy, 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 holy. Walking around. Where's this coming from? I can imagine people in his family. What's going on? Wow. Man, you think about that. I can think, if word was getting out of how blessed his household was, I'm thinking they were probably, experiencing some pretty serious stuff. And I picture maybe they'd be calling, or I guess not calling, they'd be sending for their family. Come over here. Their cousins, their relatives. Hey, we got the ark over here. What do you need? What have you been praying for? What kind of need do you have? Come here. We got the ark. I can imagine, man, the family coming, rushing in, dropping what they were doing. I can imagine the neighbors. I can imagine them having experiences too. And I just picture a line out the door of his house. Let us come near the ark. To the presence of God. I can imagine that. Can you imagine what that would be like? With the ark. In your house. Can you imagine? I remember when I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre years ago, and it was in Jerusalem. They had this stone tablet, big stone, on the ground. And I don't know how much they could prove it, but I can tell you what they told everybody is that when Jesus was taken down from the cross, at least at one point, I think maybe it was before he was in the tomb, or I think what they said, that his body was immediately laid down somewhere and it was placed on that stone. And so you can imagine the place it had in that church where this stone was at, where they said his body was placed right at the cross. And I walk in the church and there is a lot of room, but everybody's crowded in one spot when you walk in. What is this? And we're talking, you can't even try to see. What is this? And you're looking, people are taking off their shoes, they're taking off their jackets, their hats. They're taking items that they brought with them, and they're all doing this and what's going on? Let me see what's going on. Come to find out, they were gathered around this stone. They wanted the blessing so much, they were taking their shirt off, they were taking their shoes off, they were taking whatever they brought with them that they wanted to be blessed. They put it on the stone for as long as they could until the next person put their thing on the stone. I can almost imagine at Obed-Edom's house, maybe people, I don't know if they could do this or not, because I would suppose that the ark might have even been covered, I don't know, but whatever they could put near that thing, if they could even dare have something on it, to get a blessing. Could you imagine? The reverence people had for the stone at that church. Is that, this is blessing on the stone. Imagine the reverence that they would have had for the Ark of the Covenant. Imagine the history. Moses, the tablets in there. Imagine the rod that budded there in there. A lot. Imagine the statues on the top of the cherubim. I'm telling you. What if I told you the ark is in your house? You're the ark of God. Amen. You're the ark of God. Everything you could imagine that Obed-Edom might have experienced. Oh man, all the sounds of heaven. Perhaps, we're wondering what it could have been like. The blessings upon blessings. I imagine people coming, just let us in. We need a miracle from God. All these things. Perhaps visions, perhaps dreams. Just walking throughout. Angels singing. You're the ark of God. For within you is the Spirit of the living God. How would you live if the Ark of God was in your house? Well, you're the Ark of God. Not just in your house, but everywhere you go. And the more that you begin to realize, understand that, the more that you apply your faith, that you live in that way, that you are Ark of God. You should expect for your household to have the blessing of God. You should expect to be able to experience the tangible presence of God. You should expect dreams, visions, heaven opened right where you are, no matter where you are. You should expect that. Even in such a way that word would get out to everybody around you. Hey, so-and-so over here. Something going on within. Blessings. Think about that. The Ark of God. Yeah. Think on that. Think on that often. Think on that often. Often. And then everything else becomes a waste of time. Everything else becomes a waste of time. When you begin to think on that, if you had the Ark of God, Obed-Edom in your house, you'd be thinking, man, I wouldn't be doing this or wasting time, even if it's not bad stuff. I mean, like the stuff that's, just things that don't mean anything. You'd be single-minded. When you begin to realize that everything begins to change. Everything. So, when I think about that, I feel my heart begins to become moved. It moves my heart. You might call it inspiration, but it moves my heart. And when I think about that, it moves my heart to want to fellowship with the Lord. Just a fellowship with Him. And a little bit ago, we were in a still place with the Lord, and I told you to expect Him to speak to you in different ways. He will in different ways. That type of thing is a beautiful part of everyday prayer life. To expect, and to pray not just because you got a list, not just because you know you're supposed to do it. But to find yourself so consumed with prayer that you really don't want to do a whole lot else. And to find yourself in a place where that's where you're at as often as possible. And to do that in this busy, distracting world that we live in, you need to understand how to move your heart. Because once your heart is moved, I mean, you're there. But if you find yourself in a place where, man, you're going to pray because you know you need to pray, but you don't feel like you really want to at the time, do it anyways. But you want your heart to be moved. Once your heart is moved, and really ideally, that should be all the time, but this world that we live in is very, very distracting. I think that's probably why a lot of people that you read about probably didn't spend a whole lot of time around people. I cannot imagine that Elijah spent a whole lot of time around a lot of people. I picture him, out there in the desert and stuff, and then coming back once in a while, with the glory. And because even the place where he ran to, when he was running from Jezebel, the first place he ran to was the mountain. I bet he'd been there quite a few times. And so there's that. Learn how to move your heart. Think on that very thing, Ark of the Covenant. That very, very thing. What else moves your heart? So there's a lot of things that can. So, a few things. Let me think about this. Okay, so I brought these today. This is not any ordinary pair of sleeping goggles. This is prayer goggles. I have prayed with these things on so many times. It's just wonderful. And when I put these things on, I'm in a mode of expectation. I can tell you that much. And a few of you has some of these goggles too. Who owns a pair of prayer goggles? Anybody else? Brad and Wayne. Okay. And we gotta get you all some prayer goggles. And so what I do is, I don't do it like the entire time I'm praying, but like I do it in certain parts of prayer. Well, I will put these things on. And if you look, they're pretty comfortable. Got little slots right there, so they don't like push up against your eyelid. That's just terrible. Right? So I put these things on. I can have my eyes wide open when I wear these things. Yeah. And it puts my focus on the Lord. And I have prayed with these things on so many times that when I put them on, I immediately just begin to enter in. I'm into something. And put these things on. And it's just really something. So part of it is the use of them, that I wear them and I'm able just to focus on the Lord, not the things around me. The other part of it is I pray with them so many times. When I put them on, it's as if I kind of, like a switch goes off in me. And I'm in a whole different place in here. My heart has been moved. Heart has been moved. 1 Peter. 2 Peter. Can somebody, who has a traditional King James?
I do.
Kid, can you read in your traditional King James 2 Peter 3:1?
Yeah. Let me get to it. That's the New Testament, right?
That's in the New Testament. It's somewhere before Revelation.
Oh, okay. 2 Peter what? 3:1.
3:1.
That woke everybody up. That's it. The second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance.
Can you read it one more time?
The second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance.
Thank you, Kip. Stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance. To be stirred up, your pure minds by way of remembrance. Sometimes I get into a place of prayer, I just take time to remember. Just to remember the things that God has done in my life. It might be events where He has worked mightily. It might be, and usually is, I remember what His presence felt like, and what it feels like. And by remembering just a moment, there I am, in manifest presence. By way of remembrance. There's something about stirring up your pure mind by way of remembrance. Even pure minds need stirred up in this busy world by way of remembrance. And part of that too, with these goggles, let's mention the use of them. I put them on, I can focus on the Lord. But I've had so many encounters with God. When I've worn these things over the last 8 years or something, that I put these things on and instantly I am stirred up by way of remembrance. It really is something. Really is something. So things like that, goggles are good. Goggles are good. Other things too, if they cause you to remember, right? Years ago, when things really became very, very real to me, they were real before. I would have said, yeah. But when things we're talking just something changed in my life. I was 27. I remember that I was working a bunch and different things. Make a long story short, earlier in my life, I've been doing a lot of praying, all kinds of stuff. I get really, really busy and I'm working like tons of hours in these jobs. And then it starts to go away. And then I find myself later on, eventually I injured my hands. My hands were in a closed fist. I could not open them. And I would soak them in Epsom salt water. And after about an hour and a half of soaking to start each day, they'd open up about this much. And to move them, of course, the pain was just excruciating. So couldn't really play guitar or do about anything. I couldn't work either, so I was out of work and didn't have any money. So And so it was tough. And I remember about that time and that season that was very difficult. I began to just pour myself into prayer, throw myself upon Christ. It was absolutely marvelous, the things that began to happen. And along with that time period, started doing this online, prayer class school, a smaller online prayer school, and that really taught me a lot about prayer and about intercession, about our authority in Christ, and that really changed my life. And so watching those videos, learning all those things was really incredible, and it was a pivotal moment for me in that time period where I was already at, plus all of that. It was a very pivotal point for me. And so there was, one time they had this little necklace you could buy, for the prayer school, and got it right here. This thing's been worn out a lot, but right here, I've had so many experiences with the Lord that really, in that time period, just really began just to change everything in my life, to where sometimes this old necklace thing I got from way back in the day, if I just wear this thing, it reminds me of all the incredible things that God began to do in my life and does in my life. And it brings me back to that special point in time when everything changed for me. So when I put that on, as wild as it sounds, I began just to feel the presence of God. And so part of that is, spend so much time in the Lord and in prayer, maybe wearing this or this, but I think a lot of it too is something that reminds you of God's stories in your own life. And when you begin to remember, you actually begin to stir up your mind by way of remembrance, so your heart is moved. And all these things would be heart art. Do you know how to move your heart? You need to know that, because it's extremely important you walk with the Lord. And if you find yourself in a place where your heart is moved, all you want to do is just spend time with Him. You find yourself in a place where your heart's not moving, you're busy because of the business of the world. Don't be condemned. That happens to everybody. You just find your way back. And if it ever happens, you just know, hey, find your way back, And that's a great thing. It's a great thing to find your way back. And so, I have to think what else I want to say. I want to say all kinds of stuff. I want to say all kinds of things over here. But yeah, just little things, gosh. When you pray, you want to pray in a way that it's the only thing in your world. There's nothing else. If I think I'm going to pray, God, I'm going to give you 20 minutes. You got 20 minutes to speak to me, Lord? Here I am. Now, I understand if it's first thing in the day and you got to go to work, and it's good to set aside time. First thing in the day, you got to go somewhere. But you got to find at some point within your day. And you're going to have time limits, at some points. But find a point somewhere where there is no time limit. Embrace God and all those things during the times you are limited. Do that. It's okay. But find a time when you're not limited on your time. And just enjoy fellowship with Him. Just fellowship with Him. Enjoy fellowship with Him. And don't put a time to it. Keep your watch down. And you do that. For me, it's at nighttime. It's at nighttime. It's at nighttime. And so my mindset, although I always fall asleep at some point, but my mindset is I'm going to pray, and Lord, I'm going to pray and get no sleep tonight. I'm going to pray the entire night through. Now, knowing that I'm bound to fall asleep at some point, but my mindset is I'm going, like, there is no limit. And just that mindset alone, I'm telling you, the fellowship that you'll have with him is absolutely wonderful. And so I'd encourage you in that, you know. I would encourage you in that. And think about the ark in that house. And I think of all the, oh my gosh, think about that. Thinking about that. The very Spirit of God living in Obed-Edom's house. If you heard somewhere that Satan, I'm not talking about the devil, I'm talking about Satan himself had made up his own home in a person's house, on your street or somewhere, man, you would be thinking, they're probably having the worst, wild, real but bad, dark experiences ever. And you would not be surprised if you heard about them because, well, the devil himself was in that house. But for some reason, not you, but for a lot of the church, when they hear the very Spirit of God dwells within you, it's like, they know it, I guess doctrinally, theologically, but they haven't come to revelation of that. And so when you pray, expect heaven to open right where you're at. Expect to hear him. Expect to hear the Lord. Expect all kinds of things. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.